What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Instant Reaction following the Buffalo Bills win over the Tampa Bay Bucs. 18-24 is our final. I think the game kind of felt a little more stretched out than just a 6-point win. I thought Buffalo had as comfortable of a lead while only scoring 24 points as you can have in the NFL. What is your instant takeaway from this game?
The Bills punting game is amazing. That's my takeaway. And not only that, the defense for the Bills is outstanding. And they were able to prove that for, I think, 4 punts in a row inside of the 10-yard line for the Bucs. That's where they held them. And that's where they had 3 and outs. And the Bills were able to take advantage of that and go down the field and score. Now, look, we were even saying it during the stream. Why doesn't McDermott try to go for it on these 4th and 2s, 4th and 3s, 4th and 1s to try to get another score in, right? Like, why doesn't he do this? But look, it worked out at the end. And yes, it was scary there because Baker Mayfield was able to get a Hail Mary pass that literally just missed a split second longer, and Godwin may have caught that. But this is kind of why me and you were saying that. Go for another touchdown. Try to get a first down here so you can score again, so you could at least get 3 points, because shit like this happens in the NFL all the time. If coaches haven't learned this yet, like, what the hell? Look at this game. It's a perfect example, but my instant takeaway is the Bills defense is really good. The Bills offense is really good when they can be, and the Bucs, they just came up short, man, but they struggled for basically 3.5 quarters of this game.
Yeah, there was definitely that last play, man. It really looked to me like, okay, this is going to be potentially a completed Hail Mary, which doesn't happen often, but there was a chance there at the end, for it to be done. And I think if you're Tampa, you're looking at this game and you're thinking, okay, well, I would say part of the formula to success was going to be able to get Mike Evans involved. Only 3 catches on the day. That is a big target. That is one of the best receivers in the NFL. 3 catches, not really that much. But when you look at Buffalo, Stephon Diggs didn't have that big of a game either. So, I mean, it just shows how much more talented the Buffalo Bills are, because from, Buffalo, it's like you want to shut Diggs down. We got great Gabriel Davis. We got Dalton Kincaid, who was a big factor in this game. We got, James Cook. We got options, and don't forget about Josh Allen, a threat running and throwing. Mm-hmm. When it comes to Tampa, it's kind of like, it reminds me of the Giants with Saquon Barkley. It's like, if we can just stop this one thing from happening, we can ultimately, give ourselves a chance to win the game. And the Bills came out here intended on shutting down Mike Evans. He did make a really good play there at the end to get the touchdown that made it
Mhm.
interesting, but ultimately not really much of a factor in this game. Moving forward, do you think Tampa still competes in the NFC South in a division where losing a game like this doesn't really necessarily mean much in the division they're in?
Yeah, that's so funny you asked that question because I was gonna kind of go in that direction for the Bucs. Like this isn't a season killer, right? Like this is clearly with that division, the way it's going, not a season killer. There's still so many questions in that division. And I thought the Saints would have put that away earlier. But regardless, yes, the Bucs can be, they can still compete in this NFL and for that division title. They competed with the Falcons. It kind of came down to, again, another last, 2-minute drill type of drive last week against the Falcons. And that's exactly what happened today against the Bills, against a team who just held them inside their 10 3 and outs, like 4 straight fucking plays, almost 2 quarters or something like that. They can still compete. Whether or not they win, that's up for debate. I still don't think the Bucs can win at all. Kyle, do you know who the leading rusher was for the Bills?
Josh Allen.
No, but the fact that you thought it was is just says something about Josh Allen. Was his, I don't know how many games he's gone this in his career with 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. He was second to James Cook. Cook had 67 yards. Josh Allen had 41 rushing yards.
Really?
Like Latavius Murray only had 7 on 5 carries, and Josh Allen was a big reason that he was able to get first downs. The chains were able to move, and obviously, no disrespect to James Cook, but when your quarterback can do that, that is a great recipe to continue your offensive success. That's exactly what the Bills did today.
Yeah, I think for Buffalo, they were with a 4-3 record. We're kind of used to Buffalo getting around week 16 with 3 losses, and here we are at the halfway point in the season. It's like, okay, like what's going on with Buffalo? They came off of a bad loss against New England, and I say this all the time: when you lose a game like a bad loss like New England, you love playing on Thursday night. You love it. Because it's like, hey, let's get this taste out of our mouth. Let's get back in our winning ways. And Tampa came in, and I really felt like Buffalo was intending on running the score up in this game. I think like they really wanted this to be a high scoring game, not for Tampa, but offensively, the mindset was to put up a lot of points. And I think Tampa's defense, sure, you can say that they didn't do enough to get the win because they didn't get the win, and that's just the way it goes. But did they do enough to give their offense a chance to win this game? Absolutely. Absolutely they did. And I know that, the Bills are on paper just such a better team than Tampa, but you got to credit Tampa's defense because they did, bend but not break. At times they broke a little bit, but ultimately you only gave up 24 points. You kept the game within a touchdown. For most of the game, it was, I would say, a 14-point game. It wasn't like it was, 6-point game the whole time. But because your defense played the way they did, you had a chance there at the end. Unfortunately, the Bills were able to get that 1 first down on their final drive that really kind of milked the clock for everything that it was worth. But for Tampa, I still think you feel like if the goal is making the playoffs, I think you can still do that. I think you can. I mean, it's not a season-ending type of game, and it's also not a season type of win for Buffalo. This isn't a game. It's like, oh, okay, now we're going to start rolling. But you do want to start stacking wins. Buffalo hasn't really been able to stack them. It's like they win one, maybe they win 2 in a row, but then they lose. And, some of their losses have been from teams that they're supposed to beat. So, yeah, I tip my hat off to Tampa for keeping it competitive. It could have got out of hand. It could have got messy. It didn't. In Buffalo, it's a great win, but there's definitely some. I mean, Stephon Diggs, the best receiver in the NFL in some people's mind, didn't really play a huge role in this game. So, there's more. There's more. The potential is there for Buffalo, but it almost still feels like they're still getting into postseason form, and you see this a lot of time with reoccurring postseason quarterbacks, whether it's Mahomes, Buffalo, Cincinnati, you do get to a point where it's not really what happens week 1 to week 8, but it's can we get into a rhythm before Thanksgiving comes around? And I think you're seeing something similar with Kansas City, Buffalo, and
Mhm.
Cincinnati, where it's like, okay, Cincinnati's got a big game against 49ers this week. Kansas City, though, coming off of, I mean, they've only lost one game this far, but still, it hasn't felt like Kansas City's dominating by any means. So
Yep. Yep.
you do have these teams that go to the playoffs every year that are looking right now at this specific time of the year once it starts getting cold. Hey, we got to get into a rhythm. We got to start rolling. And it starts with one, and Buffalo got the job done.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier too during the stream that Buffalo, for the most part, the last 2 weeks prior to this game, they really got their scoring their scoring going in the second half, and most notably in the fourth quarter. Tampa Bay kept them scoreless in the fourth quarter, and that I don't know if you want to give credit to Tampa Bay. What I do want to give credit to is the Bills actually scoring earlier in the game. They scored in every quarter except the fourth, because that kind of like gets them back in the groove of we're not starting off slow. We're not waiting till the fourth quarter to score a touchdown. Shit, even field goals, right? Like we are not waiting anymore. What I think the Bills need to do, and again, I say this about the Bears all the time, you got to put the pedal to the metal. You've got to realize that these are NFL teams you're going up against, and they will do what they need to do in order to get into a position to win. The Bills should have gone for it at least on one of those fourth downs and short, in order to get down the field a little bit more and maybe at least minimum get a field goal. Like that's at least minimum what you want. So still, the Bills came out with a win. It came down to a last second Hail Mary for the Bucs, but the Bills came out with a win, and their defense definitely showed up today. Not exactly in the passing game, but definitely held them to run the running game down to a very, very minimum. And if you can do that and you start to make them a pass, I feel like that game starts getting a little bit easier for the defense, except in those like 2-minute drill type of positions.
Yeah, and it might not seem like it based on the score, but Buffalo was able to move the ball pretty much all day. They're going to be officially marked down with 427 total yards. Tampa Bay 302. I mean, if you can get 300 yards of total offense, I mean, it just doesn't seem like whether it's the offense or the defense, you don't look at Tampa and you're like, somebody completely let us down. It was just more of Buffalo's a better team right now, and I really think that's just kind of what we saw. Like, I think Tampa did come to win. They've lost 3 in a row after, starting off with like a 3-1 record. So they were really surprising. I think their first loss came week 3 against Philly on Monday night. It was the week you came back, actually. And that was their first loss. But since then, they haven't been able to win a football game. So you know that they really wanted to get this one. Unfortunately, they don't. Tampa now with a losing record officially. Something I think most people assumed was, inevitable to make its way to Tampa was a losing record. But it's still one of those teams like Atlanta, like New Orleans, like a lot of these mid-tier teams where it's like, look, we don't really know what to think about them. What we do know is you're going to have to play a good game to beat them. But then on some nights, they may beat themselves. So it's really tough. All you can do is, play your best game when you play them. And tonight, if Buffalo wouldn't have been firing on all cylinders, if Josh Allen would have thrown a couple interceptions, I could see a scenario where Tampa Bay squeaks one out here on the road. But this is a very far road trip. Going from Tampa Bay, South Florida, all the way to Buffalo on a short week.
Yeah.
That's not easy to do. And, they went out there, they played their best game, but I think Buffalo is just too much to handle for a team like Tampa, Saints, Patriots, any of those teams right now. Buffalo should beat them. Last week, Buffalo came off a loss to the Patriots.
Yep.
So if you ever needed to, remember a time where, you need to play your best game in order to beat a team like Tampa, the Bills only had to look back 4 days. They just had this happen in Foxborough. So I think Buffalo wanted to get back on the straight and narrow. I think they did. There's going to be hard games coming up. They did pull up a visual of next week's games. Do you remember who it was? I'm looking it up
It
as we.
was
I
Cincinnati, I
thought it was
believe,
Cincinnati.
and Denver.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
for Buffalo, it's going to be Cincinnati next week, and yeah, because we're in next week's week 9, right?
correct.
Yeah, so it's going to actually be Sunday night football. So Buffalo is now going to take a very long break, right? They're going to have, let's see, about 11 days. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Yep.
7 plus 3, 10 days, and an entire day until they play Cincinnati. And that'll be a great game because of everything, that happened last year when they played.
Yeah.
So we'll get to be on primetime again for Buffalo next week, but
Oh.
it'll be interesting because this is kind of the last we get to see from Buffalo until then. And I don't know if they gave you enough to be like, oh, I'm taking Buffalo to beat the Bengals. Meanwhile, the Bengals play the 49ers this weekend. If they win, all of a sudden Buffalo might not even be favored to win this game, even though they have a winning record and they're coming off of a win. So it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah. And last thing I'll do here is, give a shout out to a couple names on both teams. Obviously, the marquee names first, right? The quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, I talked about him earlier. When I didn't think he was going to have a great game, I just didn't think this was going to be one of the games. And look, he had a pretty decent game. He had 2 passing touchdowns, 237 pass yards. Josh Allen, on the other hand, 324 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He had an interception, but he made up for that with a rushing touchdown. Now, the low-key names that stood out that we did not expect, I want to give this one to first the Bills receiver Shakir with 6 receptions, 92 yards. Wasn't rewarded with a touchdown, but we were looking like the whole time. We're like, Shakir. We called out Shakir. We're like, where's Diggs, right? And Diggs had 9 receptions. So even then we were still like, where the fuck is Diggs? Shakir, quick little shout out to him for the Bills. Haven't really heard of him until this game. And then on the Bucs side, Rachaad White. 7 receptions, 70 yards, and still rushed for 39 yards. Great job on both of them. Obviously, the marquee names were the QBs, but the low-key names were coming up. They're getting a little bit up there as far as playmakers, Shakir and White for the Bills and the Bucs, respectively.
Do you think this is something that they can build off of with these wide receiver threes, moving forward with Shakir?
Maybe, dude. It might be one of those things where Shakir becomes a playmaker, kind of like what Gabe Davis was when he came out in that playoff game against the Chiefs, I believe, and he had like 3-4 touchdowns, or the Bengals, whatever it was. I think Shakir can be that, and, in the comments, let me know if you guys think the same about Shakir after having those 6 receptions for 97 yards or whatever. He could definitely be one of those guys for the Bills. And as far as White, he's proving, to my disapproval, he's proving that he can catch the ball and run the ball. He just, it's getting into the end zone. That's a trouble. That's a problem for him right now. But both of these guys for both of these teams can be playmakers in the future. I've got my money on Shakir though, with Josh Allen there, quarterback.
Yeah. And it'll be cool to see because it would be like the only equivalent is you see what Cincinnati's able to do, with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd. And it would be great if a third guy emerges, you know what I mean? As like, hey, you can double cover Stephon Diggs and then put, extra safety help on Gabriel Davis and, stop our run game, which isn't that great. But now all of a sudden Dalton Kincaid is coming into form.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so we kind of have to shift to Dalton Kincaid. And then there's Shakir, right? Where it's like, I think there's good vibes right now going around, right? Plenty of talent for the football to get around to. And yeah, we'll see if Buffalo can continue to build on this, because how many times have we seen a team with a star quarterback like Buffalo get hot later in the year and win a Super Bowl? I can think Eli Manning did it twice,
Yeah.
With the right team. And make no mistake about it, Buffalo still has a Super Bowl worthy defense. They still have a defense that can win a Super Bowl. And I think they still have a quarterback that can do it. And now you got these other weapons emerging. Buffalo may have potentially lost like their last game of the season last week at
Ooh.
Foxborough.
Wow,
We'll
look at
see.
that. Kyle with the
We'll see.
crazy predictions. I love it. Kyle, you got anything else before we get out of here?
No, that's all I got. It was a great game. Thank you to everybody that came in and watched the game with us. We always appreciate having people in here, especially Bill and Edub
Edub,
and
Steve.
JST and Steve. All you guys, you're the fucking best. Thank you for coming in.
Absolutely. Thank you guys again for being in the stream, like Kyle said, and being in the comments with us. We love your comments. And even if we don't show all of them, we definitely see them. We definitely appreciate you guys. But
Always
Kyle,
see them.
we'll be back in just a few minutes with your predictions episode for the rest of week 8. Kyle, I'll see you in a bit.
All right, brother.
See ya.